Hello everyone and welcome to another big clash from the round 4 of the Tata Steel Chess Tournament 2022. It's former 2800 member Shakhriyar Mamedyarov versus, a member of the next candidate tournament, the #1 Polish player Jan-Krzysztof Duda. It's a pretty crazy game, a lot of turnarounds. You guys are going to enjoy it, so let's check it out. We have some time to check up on some other games, as today is a rest day, so round 5 will only resume tomorrow. Mamedyarov with the white pieces opens with d4. Sorry about that. We have knight to f6 by Duda, c4, we have e6, knight to f3, and the d5. The queen gambit's decline is on the board. We have knight to c3, and now c5, striking in the center, going for the semi-Tarrasch defense. We have c captures on d5, and now not knight captures or e captures, but rather c captures on d4. This is somewhat rare. But lately the players wielding the black pieces in positions like these have been starting to use this even in top tier tournaments because, modern engines like Lila Chess Zero showed that it is okay to play this with black. You'll see what I mean. For example, queen captures on d4, e captures on d5, and then now e4. Striking in the center with the idea of opening up the d file. If captures, then we're going to capture on d8 and just bereft black of castling privileges. And this was considered a problem before. For example, queen captures on d8 with check, king captures, and now just knight to g5. And this is looking pretty good for white. Yes, black is up a pawn, but white can always pick up this pawn. You're threatening the f7 pawn, and black defends this with bishop to e6. This is how this line is played. And now, of course, you don't go after the pawn. You pick up the bishop. So you create some imbalance in the position. Black now has a doubled e-pawn, you have the bishop pair, and you are very happy with this. But modern engines said that this is okay for black, and now everyone is using it against everyone. So here, bishop to g5, pinning the knight, attacking the king. We have h6, and now a queenside castle. With tempo, the king is in check, and now king to e7. It looks a bit weird to block in your dark square bishop like this, but the problem is if you go king to e8, you just give white a free tempo on that pawn on e6. For example, we're going to capture here, captures and bishop to c4, put pressure here, and now you can waste another tempo by moving the king, or if you want to play something like e5, we're just going to play knight to d5, and now this is hanging, and it's just a very hard position for black to handle. So instead, after castle king to e7, this is the top move in the position. We have bishop captures on f6, g captures, and now knight captures on e4, winning the pawn back. And now the material is equal, but as you see, the position is we have bishops of opposite colors, so if everything else gets traded off, it's going to be a draw pretty much. But one thing is that white has 2 pawn islands and black has 3 pawn islands, so white should be a little bit better here. Here we have f5 challenging this knight here, and so far they've been following the game move by move that Timur Rajabov and Magnus Carlsen played in the Noon Chess Classic in 2021, the game that ended in a draw where knight to c5 was played. But here we have knight to g3 by Mamedyarov, and it is now as of move 15 that we have a completely new game. So here we have h5, continuing to advance this pawn. h4 might get this knight to an even more, unpleasant square. Bishop to c4, and now knight to d7. So just continuing development, we have king to b1, a nice prophylactic move as rook to c8 might be coming, so you do not want your king on c1. Knight to e5 challenging the bishop, bishop back to b3, and now king to f6. Just improving the position of your king. Rook h to e1, white nicely develops the rooks on the open d and semi-open e file, and now rook to e8. We need to defend this pawn so our knight can move. We have bishop to a4 attacking the rook, and now rook to e7. And now finally h4 by Mamedyarov, not allowing Duda to push h4 himself. We have knight to g6, now we can move the knight, and rook to d4. And this rook to d4 is a very nice plan by Mamedyarov. Not only is he preventing any ideas with this knight coming to f4, also you're clearing the d1 square for the bishop. So bishop to d1 will go after that h5 pawn. So what can Duda do about this? Well, just rook to c7. He doesn't care about this threat because it would be premature to go bishop to d1 here. We can just develop our bishop, for example, here, once the rook rook moves, we're gonna play b5, chase away the rook, and now even after this, for example, captures with check, we can just capture back with the rook. And now, for example, rook captures on c5, rook captures on c5, bishop captures on h5, knight captures on h4. We're gonna play g3, challenge the knight, and now, well, the material is equal, but black can, for example, play f4, open up and attack towards the bishop, and well, we haven't really achieved anything with this bishop to d1 idea. So first, sorry, bishop to d1 idea. So first we have bishop to b3, again putting pressure on this e6 pawn, and now you could defend it with rook to c6, but Duda goes for this very aggressive e5 move. So he attacks this rook. We have rook to d8, rook to d6, of course, is impossible as the bishop covers this square, so rook to d8, and now finally we have knight captures on h4. And now, what can Mamedyarov do here? Well, you could play rook to h1, kick away the knight, and then you could pick up maybe on h5, but instead he goes for rook to e8. He really wants to go for this rook to e6 check and create some complications. So knight to g6, now guarding this pawn, and we have rook to e6 with check. And now the very bold king to g5. And now bishop to c2, going after the f5 pawn, but now Duda has a brilliant winning move, but it's not problematic to see this move. The problem lies in seeing all of the variations that lead to a win. So here, of course, the move is h5. We are not only asking white to capture on f5, we are asking white, what are you even playing here? Because if you capture on f5, yes, you're guarding that knight with the bishop, but we're just going to capture the bishop. After king captures, we're going to play king captures on f5, and we have a bishop and the knight for a rook. This will be winning for black. So what can you do here? Well, Mamedyarov finds a very tricky idea. He plays rook to e3. Point being that after h captures on g3, we can play rook captures on g3 with check. And now after, let's say, king f4, you don't go after the knight, you play rook f3 check, king g5, and now rook captures on f5 with check. King to h6, and now rook f captures on e5, and you get this position where, yes, okay, black still has a bishop and a knight, so black is up a piece, but the position of the king is just terrible, and this will be unplayable for black. Also, you have to connect it past pawn, so all in all, this should be winning for white. So instead, after rook to e3, Duda does not play that. Duda plays e4, but he, well, sort of disconnects this bishop and knight controlling the f5 square, but the actual winning move for Duda here, believe it or not, is bishop to g7. And who would play this? It's such a crazy move to play, but this is winning now. And now you don't have a good move, because we already discussed that if the knight captures on f5, rook captures on c2 is just winning for black. So you're gonna have to move the knight, and now the problem is there's rook h to c8, threatening the bishop. And once the bishop moves, for example, knight f4 attacks the knight, you can't move the knight because of rook to c1 checkmate, and now Duda is completely winning. I mean, here, who plays bishop to g7 here? It's a completely crazy move, but a necessary one if you want to win this. So here e4 was played, and now we have finally knight captures on f5. This is still better for Duda, but it does give Mamedyarov some chances. King captures on f5, now rook 3 captures on e4, threatening all sorts of discoveries here. So Duda goes for rook captures on c2. Just to give you an example, if you play something like bishop to g7, we quickly checkmate the black king. For example, king g4, rook captures on g6, king f4, and now rook to f5 will be checkmate. The pawn covers the e3 square. So instead here, just rook captures on c2. We have to eliminate this nasty bishop here. King captures, and now bishop to c5. And here, okay, it's still a bishop and knight for a rook, but now that king is in a really tough spot, and especially since Mamedyarov finds the only good move for him, and that is, of course, pawn to g4 with check. With the idea that if the king moves, we're going to push f4, and if h captures on g3, we just play f captures on g3, and, well, there simply isn't all that much you can do here. g4 check is still coming, and it will be hard to defend this knight on g6. So instead, after g4, Duda tried king to g5, but now we go after the king. f4 with check, and now if you capture on g4, we just capture the knight here. So knight captures on f4 was played, but even this doesn't help. We have rook 6 to e5 with check, and now the bishop falls. So you either give up the knight or the bishop. King captures on g4, and now rook captures on c5. So king to f3. Now, okay, Duda is down the exchange, but he still has the passed h pawn, so he should be perfectly fine here. Rook to b4, as the rook was attacked by the king, and now you have to play knight to g2 for a very specific reason. But Duda just continued pushing with h3. This is move 36. They still have to make 4 more moves to reach time control, so of course they have to hurry. But now the position is completely winning for Mamedyarov. Duda allowed it, and there's nothing he can do about it if Mamedyarov finds the move, of course. So feel free to pause the video and try to find this elusive idea that Duda missed while I give you a couple of seconds. So for those of you who were able to do it, congratulations on spotting this, move that starts with a check. And for those of you who just want to enjoy the show, it is rook to c3 check, the only move that wins for Mamedyarov. So congratulations to everyone who found this. And now you simply don't have a good square. King to g4 was played. You have to keep an eye on this knight. But now rook c to c4, and it seems like so what? You're gonna capture the knight. I'm just gonna queen here. The problem is you can't. And to give you an example, if h2, we capture on f4 with check, and after king g3, there's rook g4 with check, and now king f2, we play rook to h4. That's the problem. We attack the rook and also guard the queening square, so there really isn't anything better than just queening here, and we're gonna trade, captures, but now, yes, for the moment the material is equal, but we're gonna eliminate both of these pawns. There's nothing black can do about this, and the white will have two connected pass pawns. For example, this, and now even this. You can even double your pawns. This is still winning. The black king is too far off from the action to do anything about this passed a pawn. So after rook c to c4, this doesn't work. So rook to f8 was played, guarding the knight, but now rook captures on b7 with the idea of rook to h7, just putting the rook behind the passed pawn, and all of a sudden there's nothing for Duda to do here. h2 was played, now comes rook to h7, and here king to g3. But now Mamedyarov just cold-bloodedly played king to b3, and it was in this position on move 41 that Jan-Krzysztof Duda resigned the game, as there is nothing more to be done here. So there's nothing you can do. That pawn is never queening. If you move the king, for example, king g2, just rook c2 check, and we're gonna pick up this pawn. You can't really move anything, and there really isn't a good move you can play here. So after king b3, he resigned, and a wonderful victory for Shakhriyar Mamedyarov in round 4 of the 2021 Tata Steel tournament. So tough break for Duda, but yeah, I mean, like I said, Mamedyarov is a former member of the 2800. It doesn't matter if you have a winning position. Mamedyarov will give you hell until he actually resigns. And it was I thought the quote above the board by Bruce Pandolfini was appropriate here. Mamedyarov had to complicate in order to get out of all the mess, and in the end, he even ended up winning the game. So what does this mean for the standings after 7 rounds have been played? Let's check it out. Sorry, these are the wrong standings. Let me just find the actual ones, because I did prepare them. Yeah, this should be it. Okay, no idea how that one came there. There we go. So these are the standings after 4 rounds. The tournament is led by Vidit Gujarati with 3 out of 4 points, so incredibly impressive tournament with a current rating performance of 2927. Then with 2.5 points we have Andrei Esipenko, Magnus Carlsen, and Shakhriyar Mamedyarov, and Richard Rapport and Jordan van Forest. All on 2.5. Then with 2 points, Jan-Krzysztof Duda, Fabiano, Caruana, and Pragdananda. With a 1.5, Anish, Giri, Daniel Dubov, and Sam Shankland, and Sergei Karyakin, and with 0.5 points, Niels Grandelius. So it's okay, aside from Grandelius, who is a bit lower rated than the rest of the field, it's hard to imagine, for example, Karyakin in 13th place, or maybe Dubov and Giri in 10 and 11, but it's such a strong tournament that anyone can be in any place. It's just the way it is. So yeah, that's the game. Those were the standings. Hope you guys enjoyed that. I would like to wish a very happy birthday to Busa, and I would like to thank Frederick Witte, Lance Wetterly, Josip Dujmovic, and Francis Eyre for contribution to my channel. Thank you a lot. I really appreciate it. As usual, you can check 2 of my previous videos here. Thank you all for watching, and I will see you soon, continuing the coverage of the Tata Steel Chess Tournament until it finishes. So thank you all. I will see you soon, and have an excellent rest of your day.